Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this Sunday's show. On the first up here, still a flood warning out for the Chena River there until about 11 p.m. tonight, and the flood advisory is still going for the Chena River at North Pole, and that also should be ending by 11 this evening or toward midnight as the water levels continue to subside. Satellite imagery shows a pretty good system here over the northeast Gulf of Alaska, or the northeast Pacific, eastern Gulf of Alaska. Winds gusting as high as 50 to 55 miles an hour this morning. Of course, gales out along the coast there, and areas of some pretty good rainfall occurring with that over the southeast coast. This area streaming northward right through here had the heaviest amounts of rain, just under 2 inches falling at Annette in the last 24 hours. Ketchikan actually picked up 1.82 inches in the 24-hour period, and then much less by contrast up to the North Juneau, just getting 1/10 of an inch, and Sitka only receiving 3/100ths. And then back up to around 1/2 inch at Yakutat, and then this moisture coming southward brought some rain in across Kodiak Island at times. Not too much, mostly back to the northwest here. Pretty good rainfall. King Salmon nearly just under 1/2 inch of rain, but there were some pretty good soaking rains up toward Iliamna and areas of the western Alaska Range, with some thunderstorms beginning to develop here this afternoon right over the Kilbrook Mountains and also along the eastern edge of that cloud band up over the Yukon, and a little more concentrated toward the southeast slopes here of the Brooks Range as it cleared out, warmed up, and then they started firing up. Nothing really widespread yet, and just a couple of strikes here east of Bethel. Looked like they were just near or west of the Kuskokwim Mountains, but good sunshine here in Noatak Valley across the Seward Peninsula. Inland areas reaching the low 70s there today, and another nice day out to the west here, but there was a little more in the way of precipitation in clouds moving into the Kuskokwim valleys, and of course right on up to the Arctic coast. Out to the west, not much change. Northwest winds made for a very nice day. Mild temperatures along the Alaska Peninsula, especially on the Pacific side. King Cove, northwest, as high as 30 miles an hour in gusts. Otherwise, they're about 10 to 20, and temperatures rose into the lower to mid 60s there, with Sand Point at 63 and Chignik reaching 64 degrees. Then you get into the low clouds, fog, rain, and drizzle out to the west due to this low center that's still persisting in that area, but it looks like the front's kind of getting a little more organized here, and so that's just going to keep the wet conditions, cloudy conditions in place there. High pressure will hold over the northern Bering Sea, so that's going to make for light winds, and these areas of low clouds and fog kind of shifting around there will get a little more widespread. Not as much clearing out there as we had a couple of days ago. Still pretty nice up here to the north. Some dense fog in the morning hours along the north coast of the peninsula there. Shishmaref down to 1/4 mile, but that broke out this afternoon. And then these areas of moderate showers and thunderstorms developing here. That cloud mass that came eastward Friday evening and brought the rain in across south central Alaska. Another shot up in the Tanana Valley early yesterday. That's very slowly pulling westward, but almost stopped now with the main flow sliding southward. This low pressure area here, again, that's the location of the front this morning. Not expected to move a whole lot tonight. One wave coming up will enhance the rain over the southern areas again, but periods of rain all along the Panhandle back to Yakutat. Some of that will increase a little bit, slip into the Kenai Peninsula, mostly over the southern areas, not much crossing the inlet here, just some showers, mostly from this stuff coming down from the north and northwest. So look for showers, Kodiak Island, back up into Bristol Bay again, evening thunderstorms, Kilbrook Mountains, even along the Alaska Range and back up to the north, mostly along this trough axis through the western interior, staying nice, no change out here to the west. Look for an increase in the low clouds and fog out along the coast overnight tonight. And the Arctic coast up there looking a little damp this low, and that moisture all the way up to the coastline there. So periods of rain, winds will be light winds though, and areas of fog, but wet conditions here over the west central areas down to the Brooks Range. And again, no change over the Bering. There's that low out there kind of hanging in the same place. Tomorrow it may spread some rain into the eastern Aleutians. Nikolsky has a better chance than Unalaska, for example, but definitely a better chance of seeing some moisture into those areas. Not a lot of change here for the Alaska Peninsula, but you lose those northwest winds, so may get a little harder to clear out on the southern side there, but shouldn't be too bad. Some showers lingering along that trough right up into Togiak Bay, Kilbrook Mountains northward. A little less widespread and not probably as heavy, but still pretty showery, and then mostly sunny in the morning in the interior, and then look for these afternoon showers and isolated thunderstorms to develop throughout the afternoon into the evening hours here and become a little more widespread, and just some hit and miss showers possible over the Kenai Peninsula. And the front still along the southeast coast here, but weakening gradually as it does. This low center down here just south of the Queen Charlottes, that should move northward, and probably tomorrow night and early on Tuesday, that finally will push that front eastward, so it'll be occasional rain, changing to some scattered showers during the day on Tuesday. This portion will slip over to the west and then southwest and just completely wash out. So as we see on the Tuesday forecast, there's that front finally inland with the rain, just some showers left behind with possibly, hopefully, some clearing periods off the coast. Look for some scattered afternoon showers, about a repeat for Tuesday of what we'll see tomorrow with the less clouds, sunnier conditions during the morning hours, and then these mountain showers popping up. And again, some of the taller clouds developing into thunderstorms, possibly right through this area up to the north again. High pressure, Arctic coast, light variable winds, considerable low clouds and fog possible anywhere along the coastline, right down into the Chukchi Sea. Sunshine here, western interior, still looking pretty good there. Remnants of that moisture keeping the shower threat in over the west central interior from the Brooks Range. Again, all the way down to the Aleutian Range, Iliamna Lake, and the Kilbrook Mountains, but cloudier for the Alaska Peninsula, but remaining dry. And this front keeps the eastern Aleutians in that rain chance and fog chance through starting tomorrow and extending through Tuesday. In fact, this next front coming up, this actually the old one kind of rotates around and weakens, but enough of a gradient, probably looking at some small craft advisory winds for the central Aleutians. Probably nothing more than 25 knots, and that's about it. Temperatures this afternoon, the southeast coast in the 50s with all the clouds and rain, 53 Sitka. Wrangell did push up to 57, 52 over at Yakutat, and the state capital had 54. 61 Valdez and a 63 up at Gulkana. Anchorage 64 degrees, 55 in Homer, Kenai at 58, 54 down at Kodiak, and a 61 up at Talkeetna. Temperatures rising into the near or lower 70s up over the Tanana Valley, with Fairbanks had reached 70 at 4 o'clock, and Eagle was the state's warm spot with 74 degrees. Otherwise 66 at Fort Yukon, and lower 50s there for the Arctic Village area. The Arctic coast, mid-30s there from Barrow on east, with areas of low clouds, fog, and some light rain at times, and kind of a light northeast wind there keeping it cooler. But inland areas, 42 at Atchison, 46 at Wainwright, and then 36 at Point Lay, or that's actually at Cape Lisburne. Kivalina up to 50, 60 degrees at Kotzebue, and 63 at Ambler. And kind of 50s and 60s here through the southwest interior areas, except where the clouds and rain were heavier. There's 48 at Sleepmute, 47 at Koliganek, 46 over at St. Mary's, and a 39 at Savunga. Pribilof's upper 40s today, about the same here for the eastern Aleutians. Adak did get up to 50, and 60 degrees at King Cove with a 48 at King Salmon. For the lows tonight, near 50 right through this stretch, and then otherwise 40s, upper 30s to lower 40s. milder up to the north and mostly in the lower 50s for the Panhandle, 40s out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Highs into the mid to upper 70s. In fact, Eagle, you'll probably see 80, 81, maybe even 82 degrees tomorrow with lower to mid 70s here covering much of the eastern interior, north of the mountains to the south, mid 60s. Upper 60s back out over the Yukon, Kuskokwim Delta areas. Another nice day coming up for the Seward Peninsula, as well as the Noatak Valley up there, and otherwise no change over the Bering Sea. Temperatures in the 40s. Flying weather with that front line along the coast. Look for marginal VFR with periods, areas of IFR as well at times there, but some marginal stuff could slip into Prince William Sound possibly, but most of this will be off the coast. Otherwise, VFR, Kodiak Island up through Cook Inlet, much of the eastern half of the state. And then where that trough axis is kind of stalled out, look for areas of marginal VFR with possible IFR up here over the southern slopes of this portion of the Brooks Range. And the usual up there along the Arctic coast. And then lots of marginal VFR with some breaks out here over the eastern Bering Sea, lower conditions over the southwest. For passes, Anaktuvuk, marginal VFR at times. Could possibly see IFR there in the southern entrance. Adigan, actually same forecast as Anaktuvuk. Lake Clark and Merrill could hold on to some marginal VFR until tomorrow morning. They'll become VFR farther to the north. The other passes there, Merrill and Rainy, VFR the entire day. Windy, same forecast. VFR, good VFR for Isabel. Wide open for Mentasta, no problems for Tanita and Portage. Possible marginal VFR if some of that moves on up into Prince William Sound, might slip up the west side there and come down the Passage Canal area, but otherwise looking pretty good. Chilkoot and White, marginal at times, or probably marginal most of the time. And freezing levels here showing kind of a gradient across from the Gulf of Alaska into western Canada. Big upper level high over there, and then the cold low in the Gulf. So kind of keeping that frontal boundary there, lying from again northwest to south, northwest to southeast until this portion comes northward and finally kind of shoves it through tomorrow night. And icing threats, rime or mixed below 15,000 feet, areas of possible here over the southeast coast, and then just a lot of hit and miss mixed icing areas here over the western interior and kind of scattered around the southeast interior as well. Here's the upper low there in the Gulf of Alaska, and then this next system, once this low here moves up, that should shove this jet stream over a little bit, and the southern one will become dominant, and that'll help shut the rain off over the Panhandle. Otherwise, not much flow out here at all. Still looking at high pressure at over the southeast Bering Sea. This low up here along the Arctic coast, that's what's going to enhance that moisture flowing northward. So look for fairly widespread areas, some light rain, as well as clouds, especially from the Brooks Range on up over the west central portions. 9,000 foot winds, strongest again over the southeast coast, 30 to 40 knots there over the Panhandle. Light variable winds under high pressure here to the west, and then could be, looks like a wind max up here, 25 to 35 knots there over the northeast part of the state from, looks like the White Mountains on up to the eastern Arctic coast. You could see as high as 35 knots. Same thing at 9,000 feet there, strongest winds there. Not too bad out over the Bering Sea, actually pretty light, and then stronger winds here at 3,000 feet for the Panhandle. And with that will be some areas of light to isolated moderate chop there, and also with those winds crossing the Brooks Range, mostly below 5,000 to 8,000 feet or so on the east side, otherwise smooth back to the south and west. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Alaska, land of the midnight sun. A fragile place dominated by unspoiled habitat and plentiful resources. An essential thread in the web of life for the humpback whale. Most humpback whales in the North Pacific Ocean are migratory. Wintering in Hawaii to breed and calve, over 600 of these gentle giants travel to Alaskan waters every summer to feed. Each whale can eat up to 1 ton of food every day. Humpback whales don't feed during migration or while in tropical waters. Because of this, it's critical that these whales feed freely while in Alaska. Prior to 1905, an estimated 15,000 humpback whales populated the North Pacific Ocean. Widespread commercial whaling reduced that population to less than 1,000. In 1972, the United States Congress recognized that humpback whales were in danger of extinction. Landmark legislation, known as the Marine Mammal Protection Act, provided for the preservation of all marine mammals and their habitat under the jurisdiction of the United States. Since the implementation of the Marine Mammal Protection Act, humpback whale populations have been steadily increasing. The Marine Mammal Protection Act and the associated regulations are implemented and enforced by the National Marine Fisheries Service, also known as NOAA Fisheries. NOAA Fisheries is committed to rebuilding humpback whale populations by maintaining and enhancing a healthy marine environment, measuring and monitoring key population parameters, and identifying and reducing human-related injuries and mortalities. Humpback whales are not alone in their journey to Alaska. Each year, over 500,000 visitors from all over the world enjoy marine travel and recreation opportunities in Alaska. In addition to the large number of vessels visiting Alaska, there are almost 35,000 pleasure craft registered to Alaskan residents. Between 1995 and the year 2000, the number of registered charter boats in Alaska nearly doubled. The increase in tourism and boating traffic presents new challenges to prevent disruption of normal humpback behavior and feeding. Vessels can separate cows and calves, disrupt surface resting, and even strike a whale. Humpback whales can be enjoyed by everyone if responsible operating procedures are followed. Whale behavior may be affected by various factors: numbers of vessels, operating habits, the underwater noise produced by the boat, and the cumulative effects of boats over sustained periods.
Okay, I happen to have a pamphlet here that's a guideline.
NOAA Fisheries devised and distributed a number of recommended marine mammal viewing guidelines for Alaska.
Good, all right, have a good day.
The guidelines were intended to minimize human impacts on marine mammals.
Miss Officer Newman, can I help you?
I saw something on the water today that really bothered me. There was a boat out harassing whales.
Concern from the general public and a continued increase in vessel traffic suggested that minimal regulations were needed to preserve normal feeding behavior. The regulatory process began with a meeting of marine biologists to discuss the foundation for regulations. Next, input from the public was solicited and reviewed by NOAA Fisheries. An environmental assessment was prepared. The proposed regulation was published in the Federal Register. Again, the public was invited to comment. Many of those comments are incorporated in the final regulations, which are intended to minimize impacts on humpback whales. Approaching a humpback whale closer than 100 yards is prohibited. This includes approach by interception. A minimum distance of 100 yards can be maintained with reasonable certainty. Using a relatively inexpensive laser rangefinder, an operator can determine how close their vessel is to any given object, including a humpback whale. Compliance is monitored by NOAA Fisheries enforcement officers and special agents using a laser rangefinder that integrates an electronic compass to determine distance and direction. A computer then calculates the distance between the boat and the whale. It is possible for a boat to affect a whale at distances far greater than 100 yards. For this reason, NOAA Fisheries recommends that all vessel operators follow the marine mammal viewing guidelines.
We're trying to be respectful of them and not change their behavior.
If a whale approaches your vessel to within 100 yards, put your engine in neutral and allow the whale to move away. If you need to move around a whale, do it slowly, from behind. This will minimize the chances of striking a whale. Please do not pursue any marine mammal. Avoid approaching humpback whales when other vessels are near them. Don't encircle whales or trap them between other boats or the shore. Always leave whales with a clear departure route. Communicate with other vessel operators to coordinate activities. Limit your viewing time. Humpback whales can suffer from the cumulative effects of sustained traffic. Avoid sudden changes in speed or direction when you're in the vicinity of whales. Remember, a slow departure from the viewing area is just as important as a slow approach. NOAA Fisheries encourages you to enjoy our nation's living marine resources. Responsible vessel operations are a critical safeguard that will allow humpback whales to thrive undisturbed and to be appreciated for many generations.
Welcome back. Well, small craft advisories here, mostly along the central and north coast tomorrow, but all these winds coming down tomorrow afternoon. Inside waters, pretty light and variable, 5 to 15 knots. And then once that front pushes through and winds become quite light, 10 to 15 knots, mostly from a southwest direction here along the coast, and about the same over the inside waters. Calm to 10 knots, maybe 20 knots from the Southland Canal. For the Prince William Sound zone there, marine zone, light variable winds, and northeast 15 for the central coast, light north to northwesterlies here on the west side, light variable conditions, Shelikof Strait, and kind of a southwest breeze up Cook Inlet. That'll hold through Tuesday, maybe up to 15 knots for Shelikof Strait. Otherwise, light variable winds here all along the North Gulf Coast from the Barren Islands, and variable to southwest for Prince William Sound. For Bristol Bay, west at 15. Otherwise, the light variable winds Sitkinak to Sand Point, west 10 on the Pacific side of the peninsula, northeast on the Bering Sea side. Then with that next system, could kick the winds up southeast. They'll go southeast, maybe only 15, could be up to 20 knots Tuesday afternoon. Light variable winds over Bristol Bay and very light winds southwest of Kodiak. The Fox Islands tomorrow here look southeast at about 10 or 10 to 15 knots, turning easterly, but light and variable winds there west of Adak out to about Amchitka. And then kind of a north to northeast wind up to 15, a little stronger in these areas. Again, enough of a gradient with this front pushing up from the south, 25 knot winds across Atka and Adak, and then 15 to 20 knot easterlies there for the remainder of the Fox Islands. And the southwest coast here from, well, along the coast, 10 to 15 knot northwest winds, west 15, St. Lawrence Island, otherwise pretty light over the Bering Sea, southeast at 10 knots for the Pribilofs. Could kick up to 15 knots maybe from a more easterly direction on Tuesday. Very light northwest drift here along the coast, and just a breeze, barely a breeze there over the northern Bering Sea across St. Lawrence Island. Eastern Arctic coast, pretty light and variable, 5 to 10 knots. Actually, that extends over to the central coast as well. Should be more of a westerly direction there to northwest and north, and then light west there, Kotzebue Sound. And then light variable to dead calm winds out in this area for Tuesday. West to northwest, only at about 10 knots all the way up to the central coast, and kind of a light variable wind there even on the east side, turning toward northwest during the mid and afternoon hours. For tonight, again, rain, periods of, heavy at times in the southern areas as this wave pulls up the coastline. That'll pull back to the northwest later tonight into early tomorrow morning. That's why I held the small craft advisories on the north and central coast there, and hopefully it'll stay east of the North Gulf Coast. But anyway, periods of lighter rain extend back along that frontal boundary and kind of link up with this moisture coming down from the northwest. It looks kind of cloudy and wet over Kodiak Island. Bristol Bay, showery conditions, showery convection here along this trough axis in the west. Mostly sunny over the Tanana Valley into the Copper River Basin, and kind of wet here from the western Brooks Range all the way up to the central Arctic coast areas. Drier to the east, sunnier to the west, right down the coastline there, and otherwise no change out in the Bering Sea. Light winds and low pressure over the Aleutians, high pressure surrounding it, so that's going to kind of lock it in place here, but some of this moisture will probably stream to the eastern areas, Nikolsky, and then on into Dutch Harbor and Alaska. No change, lighter winds over the Alaska Peninsula, trending cloudier there, but it'll stay dry. Less showers with this trough. Afternoon showers, isolated thunderstorms over the remainder of the interior areas, mostly over the mountains. Drier up here over the northeast, though. And for Tuesday, again, this next front coming up, a little bit better development there, so maybe some small craft advisories, as I mentioned, for the central Aleutians, kind of damp for the eastern areas there, and lots of low clouds and fog with the light winds out in the Bering Sea. Good night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.